Hello everyone, I am back for this week's live. I think there's like 7 of you online, but I'll shoot this video anyways. Sorry for being in the car because I've been on the road a lot lately, so I feel as if all my videos have been out of the car. But I got asked a question and I'll post it here and I'll read it to you guys right now. How do you figure out what needs fixing and upgrading? Is it your experience or do you get a professional inspector to have a look? So I'll answer this in 2 parts and I'll try to keep it short since my last live was like 40 minutes. And sorry for everyone that stuck through the whole thing. You're a trooper. Okay, so I'll answer in 2 parts. Part number 1, do I hire an inspector? Hi everyone. And if you have any questions, go ahead and just put them down there. I'll try to go through them. But very rarely will I hire an inspector, mainly because I guess it depends where the property is. So here locally where I live, I will probably not hire an inspector because I know a lot of the things that could be wrong with the property. So I'm in Portland, Oregon, Southwest Washington. Generally there's a lot of water intrusion, mold, anything that comes up on an inspection report has to do with water. And I have the connections, I have the resources, I have the subcontractors that could work through a lot of those problems. And more often than not, it's a couple $1,000 flips. And when you're buying multifamily property, the inspections cost a couple thousand. And when you're buying multifamily property, sometimes those fixes cost a couple thousand. So I've never seen the real value of having like an inspection report unless it's a specific type of property. Like if you have a specific concern, let's put it that way. Like I bought a property that was in an area that had high exposure to radon. Yes, I did buy the kitchen cabinets at Home Depot. And I wanted to have radon done because I wasn't very familiar with that, so I paid for that. Also, if you're buying property out of state, like I just bought 6 units in Florida. We finally closed on those, you guys. It was a rough journey. Okay, but I don't know anything about Florida. I don't know anything about the weather. I don't know anything about the type of damage that can happen to properties. So we hired a professional and we went through the report with him. We're like, is that an issue? Is that normal? Should we expect that? So that's when I would pay for it. Okay, hold on. Let me answer the first part of the question. Is it your experience? Okay, so yeah. So when your money's on the line, you start learning a lot faster than if you were to just do a bunch of research. So for example, like when you're shopping 2 different properties, but let's say one has double pane vinyl windows and the other one has aluminum windows. When you're going through a remodel, how do I pick things to remodel? When I'm shopping for properties, I see what has value. Now, if this bedroom has carpet and this one has laminate, I don't care about that kind of stuff. I don't care in the buying process, I don't care in the leasing process, and I don't necessarily care in the selling process. So that's how I'll make my judgments on what gets done and what doesn't. Another thing, it just depends on what you plan on doing with the property. So this unit that I'm remodeling right now, I plan on Airbnb-ing it. And in my mind, I can visualize my Airbnb cover photo. And the way people are going to click and book on it, that cover photo is going to be a 10 out of 10. New doors, new molding, new floor. It's going to have a certain aesthetic, a certain color scheme. And you keep that in mind as you're doing a remodel. Like we were going to, something very small. I think it was like replace the hinges somewhere. And in my mind, I'm like, that shouldn't necessarily need to get done because that's not going to drive the rental for the Airbnb or leasing it on the back end. Also leasing experience. So 3 parts: the buying experience, the leasing experience as the property manager, and the selling process when you offload the property. So I bought another property, which at the time I didn't care too much for, like having a washer dryer in unit. So I bought this complex that had a laundromat, didn't have washers and dryers in units, but there was a laundromat within like it was 5 feet away from the unit. And I'm like, oh, that's great, that's perfect. I had such a hard time leasing those units. We've since sold that building. But I had such a hard time leasing those units because there wasn't a washer dryer in unit. I posted the property for rent at market rent and they weren't leasing, and I dropped it. So it's okay to make those kind of mistakes, not know. So moving forward, when I say I have specific criteria for a property, I want it to have garages, I want it to be on a corner lot. I want it to have washers and dryers in units. It's because of my experiences and things I've learned from the past that they make a huge, huge difference. Now, also being in the Pacific Northwest, the units having air conditioning doesn't matter, because that's never been a bump when leasing. That's never been a bump when selling properties, because that's just not the culture here. But imagine having a property in Georgia or Florida that doesn't have air conditioning. So it also depends on your market, but a lot of this stuff you'll learn from experience.